today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
what to do when your partner just spends way more than they should. Typically in this dynamic, there is one partner who is more, I'm going to call it money conscious or perhaps thrift oriented. And the other partner just feels like money is something to be spent. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're going to talk about letting go of their spending, even if it's way more than you collectively, maybe you personally can afford. And this is sadly a very common occurrence where you have one partner who just keeps spending you and your family into debt, perhaps, or maybe spending you and your family into a position where you're living at a level that you just don't want to be living in. How does this happen, you ask? It can happen a number of ways. One person may be working and the other one not, or both people may be working. And we're going to talk about both scenarios. But the way that this happens is that one person just doesn't have a handle on either the value of money or appreciate the limitations of money as they have it in their lives. And typically in this dynamic, there is one partner who is more, I'm going to call it money conscious or perhaps thrift oriented. And the other partner just feels like money is something to be spent. Now, that in itself is not a problem. The challenge happens when the person who feels that money is something to be spent is spending more than is what's coming in from one income or two, or they're spending a larger portion of what's coming in than was agreed on or is healthy for the family budget. Now, the one way this can occur is you may not have a family budget, which, believe it or not, is fairly usual. There are a large number of households that really don't even have an idea of how much money they should be spending. They're just struggling so hard to pay the bills. Now, when a family is in that position, that can increase this problem dramatically. And this challenge or this problem happens across incomes. There are families where they're bringing in $200,000, $500,000, $1 million a year, and what's going out is that much or more. And in those families, it's even more likely because there is a sense that look at all this money that we're making, look at all this wealth that we have. Of course, we can afford to spend the money the way we want to. Of course, we can afford to have what we want because there's so much coming in. Add to this some of the things we've been talking about in earlier episodes about the culture around material wealth and spending. All right, we live obviously in a culture that has a heavy emphasis on owning objects and owning quality objects at that. Right, so you may have a car, a home, a dishwasher, a washing machine, a dryer, and feel like, why don't I have a better home? Why don't I have a better car? Why don't I have a better dishwasher, washing machine, dryer? Even though the studies show that more, better, different, once you hit this level where you have a home with all the accoutrements, doesn't really make you happier. We kind of get hooked on, all right, we've made it to this level, let's make it to the next level. We live in a very game-oriented society, so it makes sense that we get hooked on that. So one way this can happen is when two partners are out of sync about money and how to spend it. Another way this can happen is when there is no spending plan or budget. Another way this can happen is when families are really hooked on, I need to have more, better, different. I need to have the best of. I need to keep up with the Joneses or the Smiths or the Musks, or the Rockefellers, whoever it might be. There's another way that this happens also, is when one person is spending the money secretly. So there might be a partner who is opening up credit cards and their partner is not aware that those credit cards are being opened. And this happens as well, where people say, you know what? She is not giving me the money I deserve. I'm going to open up a credit card. And that way I won't feel so restricted by them. And so get that part of the dynamic here isn't just that one person is more thrifty and the other one is more spendy. It's also that one person might be a little controlling and restrictive of the other in some way. It might not even be about money, by the way. Right? A lot of times when people feel like they need to spend money, it's either because they're taking back emotional power through the expenditure of money. Oh, screw you, I'm going to spend it even though I know you don't like it. Or it might be that they don't feel like they're getting the love that they want, need, and deserve. It might be that they have a diagnosis of some kind. Maybe they're depressed, and the only way they can fill up the hole of that depression is through spending. In fact, they might not even be spending money on more, better, different, or better or different. They might just spend money just as a form of gratification. I'll share a story with you about this. I have a couple that I worked with very intimately where both partners were earning, one more than the other. And the way this shook out was when they first met, they opened up a joint account, and they had separate accounts. And so they would put money in their separate accounts and then each of them would put money in the joint account. And what started happening was one of the partners was depressed, in fact. And a symptom of that depression was spending money on things and not even opening the bags when they came home. And so that person would often buy the same thing 15, 20 times when it was on sale, and they'd be all over the house in bags never touched, right? Part of the gratification that partner got was the idea that they were saving money by buying things on sale, but they never actually used the objects. So the savings didn't actually occur, right? If you have the objects and you don't use them, you've really just spent money because you haven't gotten the value out of the object that you purchased. The other partner was earning more than this partner and noticed that this partner's contributions to the joint account had ended, and that that the partner who had the depression and the spending pattern was drawing money from the joint account for this endeavor. And the primary wage earner partner was upset, and they tried hammering the depressed partner about it. You've got to stop doing this. Can't you see you're spending us into a hole? This isn't going to work. And the more he would hammer that partner, the more that partner would, guess what they do? They go and spend more, right? And what the primary wage earner, who was really doing their best to carry the family, realized working with us is that the criticism and the pressure and the efforts to control the depressed partner just were never going to work. And so what the primary wage earner did was they set some financial boundaries. So the first thing that they did was they stopped putting money in the joint account. In fact, they closed the joint account, right? The primary wage earner was paying all the bills and supplementing inadvertently the depressed partner's spending pattern. So by closing that joint account, the primary wage earner stopped supplementing the depressed partner's spending. And that gave that person, the primary wage earner, I'm going to be honest, it was a him, that gave him more money to pay the bills with. A huge relief, right? So number one, right, when you're in this position, controlling them, trying to control them, trying to change them, trying to get them to see the light, none of that works. All right. What works is taking direct control of your contributions, if possible, and separating the money. Now, I want to be really clear that separating the money, when you separate money like that, you're in essence withdrawing part of your agreement as part in the partnership. A partnership is emotional. A partnership is financial. A partnership has a shared vision. A partnership has a shared mission. A partnership has shared values. But when you find that your partnership does not have shared values, or your partner is not acting on those shared values because they're depressed or have something else going on, it becomes necessary to withdraw financing values that you do not support without being punishing, without being critical, without being controlling, without trying to fix them, without trying to help them. Now, what happened next was that the other partner started to have less money and have less to spend, and the whole relationship came to critical mass, and they needed to work on the relationship. But it wasn't until the depressed partner got a handle on A, that they were depressed, B, that they were spending money to compensate for the whole huge emotional hole they were feeling, and C, that her other partner, the primary wage earner, was withdrawing from the relationship, that need became evident. And they got some help and they did some work on it. All right, so what we can take from this is, at times it is necessary to create financial division in the relationship. And when we do that with the well-being of the family in mind. Now, it's very easy for us to put on our WTF, I'm going to separate the finances for the well-being of the family hat on. And anytime we do anything from a WTF place, a what the frick place, we're angry, we are hurt, we are sad, and what we generate is anger, hurt, and sadness. So what worked for this guy, the primary wage earner, is he unplugged from his partner's spending. He started to feel bad for her that she couldn't manage it. He said, hey, if we can't work this through, I may need to get divorced. So that was part of what drove them to get help. And he did it in a way that was loving. He said, I want us to have a partnership, but I don't feel it's okay in a partnership for one partner to be paying all the bills and the other one to be spending everything they have on things that they're not even using, or that don't contribute directly to the household, or that contribute minimally to the household, as the case may be. Now, in this case, the other partner was able to hear it and they were able to take action, but sometimes the other partner isn't able to hear it. And you have no recourse then but to start to continue withdrawing from the partnership. In the event that the other partner does hear it, there's the opportunity to mend and renegotiate the partnership. So the strategy here is A, accept that they are who they are. You can't change them. The only thing you can change is you. B, set some financial boundaries so that you're not feeling the impact of this financial imbalance as much as you were, and it starts to minimize the conflict. And C, you got to do something about yourself. All right. If you continue to feel hurt and angry in particular and want to fix the other person, which, believe it or not, is not unusual for the person who really wants to have financial control and financial direction, then it may be necessary to let go of some old emotions. The chances are what's happening anytime we're going from 0 to 60, what's happening is there are old emotions getting in the way. When we go to 0 to 10, we're having emotion in the moment. When we go from 0 to 60, like an electric car, then old emotions from the past are coming up. Oh my God, I feel cheated again, right? And the unresolved emotions of the past are coming up, and it might be necessary to get some help with that. We've got some great techniques for that in Rich in Relationship. We are developing some free resources around the fight and money, right? This episode has been dedicated to how not to have the fight. The fight is when you go from 0 to 60 and you lay into the other person. This is how to let go of and begin to move on from. And so we're developing some terrific free resources. Go to richinrelationship.com, richinrelationship.com, just like the name of this podcast, and you'll find them on the homepage. We're also going to have an ending the fight. If you're having that fight, even once you separate yourself financially and start to try and sort things out, if you're still having that fight, we're going to have a masterclass on how to end the fight. The fight that is that destructive fight where each of you feels that you're right and the other person's wrong. Each of you wants to win at the expense of the other person losing. That is a fight that will destroy your partnership and that has no resolution. I'm going to say this again. It has no resolution. Even when you win, you lose. And if you're losing, then you feel like you have to win. And if you feel like you have to win, you go back to the fight. It's like a snail. It's like a snake eating its own tail. That's where the snail comes from. Snake eating its own tail. A snail. It's like a snail. If you like what you're hearing or have questions, please comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment. We're try to be as responsive as possible. Go to richinrelationship.com if you're interested in talking about what's going on. I have a free call available for you. And this is Rich Heller thanking you for tuning in and signing off.